How? How to explain this? Bailey Chongqing knew that some information couldn't be hidden. After all, everything Zhang Yi did in the zombie crisis was too eye-catching, and the strength he displayed was also obvious. Can be said that if Zhang Yi was not there, the mission in Tianhai City would definitely fail, and they would not even be able to save their lives. With so many brilliant deeds, even if Zhang Yi and Bailey Chongqing wanted to hide them as much as possible, it would be impossible to hide them all. Therefore, with complete resolution, he decided to only conceal the fact that Zhang Yi killed Yuan Kongye alone in the final battle. As for his previous contributions, there was no way to hide them. But this was enough to make Zhu Zhang interested in Zhang Yi. Bailey Chongqing looked at Zhu Zhang seriously. Zhang Yi is indeed a talent. He is very capable and has extremely rare space-related abilities. If he can come to the Jiangnan district headquarters with his ability, he will be an elite even in the investigation team. Bailey Chongqing first praised Zhang Yi, but soon he changed the subject and his tone even became more serious. But this person's thoughts and personality made everyone, including his own teammates, feel uneasy and not very reassuring. With his arm leisurely folded, Zhu Zheng's eyes condensed. Oh, what does this mean? Is he a bad person? The first criterion for recruiting people in the Jiangnan district investigation team was not ability, but absolute loyalty. This was not a decadent ideology, but mainly due to these turbulent times. If the people inside have the wrong ideas, it is likely to cause huge troubles internally. Bailey Chongqing knew this and decided to use it to his advantage. So he continued, Zhang Yi is an extremely selfish person. He is exactly like the mutants in other cities. Perhaps because he has experienced too many bloody and cruel things in the apocalypse. He has no collective consciousness. Even in our battle with the zombies, he always puts his personal interests first, and is always ready to abandon his teammates and escape. In addition, this person will do anything to achieve his goals, regardless of everyone's life except his own. To put it bluntly, he had no faith, not even a little. As soon as Bailey Chongqing said this, he suddenly felt that maybe he had gone too far. Although he deliberately discredited Zhang Yi to prevent Zhu Zhang from being tempted by him. However, slandering others behind their backs can easily affect his impression in the leader's mind. So he quickly made up for it, but to be honest, his mentality is a bit understandable. After all, we're currently in the apocalypse, and it is difficult to find a few people with firm beliefs. After listening to this, Zhu Zheng's thoughts on Zhang Yi did fade quite significantly. An unstable mutant, even if he is strong, he doesn't want to use him. In Zhu Zheng's eyes, Zhang Yi is just an ordinary Delta-level mutant. And although there were not many mutants of this level in their headquarters, there weren't very few either. However, if he knew that Zhang Yi had devoured the incomplete essence of an Epsilon-level mutant, then the situation would be difficult to say. Also, about the origin of Yuan Kongye, Bailey Chongqing explained in the report that Yuan Kongye died without a complete body, and her origin also dissipated between heaven and earth. Zhu Zhang did not have any doubts about the report mainly because of two reasons. First, he believed in the loyalty of the investigation team, and they also had no need to hide anything. If they got the origin and became stronger, they, including their family, would directly benefit and be the focus of training in the region. Second, in the past missions with fierce battles, mutants died without a complete body and their origins also collapsed as a result. So, a battle of this magnitude with countless casualties and millions of dead people. It wasn't unreasonable that Yuan Kongye's origin dissipated. Although it was a pity, no one was to be blamed. Zhu Zhang looked at Bailey Chongqing, and a thoughtful light appeared in his eyes. Each of the 6 major investigation teams must have a powerful mutant as their leader. However, Blizzard City had not found any mutant with similar strength to Bian Junwu at present. So Bailey Chongqing was quite capable and the best candidate to replace the captain. And although he was not as good as the captains of the 6 major investigation teams, he was still better than any of the ordinary team members. The key was that Bailey Chongqing was experienced in carrying out tasks and has considerable prestige in the team. Therefore, Zhu Zhang raised his head and said to Bailey Chongqing seriously, I am also deeply saddened by the death of Bian Junwu, but his position cannot be vacant. Bailey Chongqing, from this moment onwards, you will be the captain of the Black Robe Squad. Bailey Chongqing's majestic body trembled slightly as he got up. His eyes couldn't hide his excitement. After all, the treatment between captain and deputy captain was vastly different. And this meant he and his family would now enjoy the A-level living treatment of Blizzard City. Bailey Chongqing's eyes were filled with tears from his excitement as he saluted Zhu Zhang. Thank you for the cultivation and trust. Commander, I will do my best to contribute all my strength to the Commander and Blizzard City. Zhu Zhang nodded slightly. Well, the official appointment documents will be in your hands in the next 2 days, and your Black Robe team will be awarded first-class merit. In addition, Bien Junwoo would be awarded a first-class individual merit, and since his family already enjoys the treatment of martyrs' relatives, they would also continue to enjoy the A-level living supplies from the headquarters. Bailey Chongqing nodded slightly and bowed excitedly. Thank you, Commander-in-Chief. Bailey Chongqing left Zhu Zheng's office. When he walked out of the door, although the weather outside was gloomy, the light was particularly abundant. He was in a very good mood. Although he had just lied to Zhu Zhang by omission and carefully concealed some of Zhang Yi's information, this result was a win-win for everyone. Zhang Yi did not have to come to Blizzard City as he wished, Bailey Chongqing became the captain, and the fallen Bien Junwoo inexplicably got the first-class merit, and from now on his wife and children will have no worries about food and clothing. This result couldn't be better. Suddenly, a cold voice came from not far away. Deputy Captain Bailey. No, I guess I should call you Captain Bailey now. Bailey Chongqing turned his head slightly and saw a woman in a white coat walking towards him. She was tall, with a lazy expression and a hint of indifference, and her long hair was casually tied up with a ballpoint pen. When Bailey Chongqing saw her, a smile immediately appeared on his face. Oh, it turns out to be Professor Shin, he said. Her name was Li Lingxue, the chief professor of the Scientific Research Department of Blizzard City. In Blizzard City, there are not many people who dare not give face to the Scientific Research Department, because after the arrival of the era of Great Mutation, the role they currently play was even stronger than the army. Li Lingxue came over and said lazily, "Where's the thing you were talking about?" "Oh, here. I was going to deliver it to you in person after reporting to the commander." Bailey Chongqing took out a tightly closed glass container from the pocket of his combat uniform and handed it to Li Lingxue. Li Lingxue looked at the glass container curiously. "Is this the mutant plant you talked about?" Bailey Chongqing nodded. "It has a very strong growth ability and can also produce zombie viruses that can infect the host." Li Lingxue raised her eyebrows. "It doesn't sound very powerful." Hearing this, Bailey Chongqing was dumbfounded and looked a little embarrassed. This thing almost wiped out the entire Tianhai city. But in Li Lingxue's eyes, she was not impressed at all. But it's no wonder this Professor Li has studied too many strange things after all. Li Lingxue put away the glass container with the bloodvine rhizomes and went back without even saying hello. Bailey Chongqing was used to her attitude. This person was not arrogant. She was just not very interested in anything other than scientific research. He shrugged and turned to walk towards home. Subsequently, immediately after Bailey Chongqing left the office, Zhu Zhang sat in a chair with an extremely solemn expression. The crisis level in Tianhai City this time was much higher than he had imagined. The death of a captain-level figure was the first time since the end of the world. And now, it has only been half a year away since the end of the world. Even if Blizzard City is full of talented people, it cannot withstand such consumption. An idea that had long occurred in his mind resurfaced at this time. Zhu Zhang crossed his hands and looked at the Blizzard City covered with snow outside the window. He muttered to himself, "It is difficult to maintain the stability of the Jiangnan region for a long time relying solely on the power of Blizzard City. It seems that we have to rely on the power of various places." He used the communicator to call his secretary Lan Xinqing. Lan Xinqing respectfully responded from the other end of the line. "Commander-in-Chief, what do you want?" Zhu Zhang said seriously, "Xinqing, issue a notice in my name immediately. The target is all forces of a certain size in the entire Jiangnan region. Tell them that in 10 days, I will hold a meeting for mutants in the entire Jiangnan region in Blizzard City. Please be sure to come and participate." Lan Xinqing was slightly startled, and in a respectful tone once again, asked Zhu Zhang if he was finally planning to integrate the forces of the Jiangnan region. Zhu Zhang's eyes flashed with absolute determination. "I have been thinking about this plan for a long time. It's just that the death of Bien Junwoo made me realize that I must speed up the pace and can't delay it any longer." The reason why Zhu Zhang didn't do this in the past was because the timing wasn't right. However, countless forces of all sizes have formed in various cities, and are constantly fighting and killing each other. Even if the Jiangnan region obstructs them with absolutely powerful forces, it requires so much energy to manage them. And there were other pressing matters that needed his attention and energy. Zhu Zhang also added that, if necessary, they can eliminate some of the troublemakers first. This meeting was convened by force, and no one was allowed to not come. Otherwise, it would be regarded as disobedience to the Jiangnan region. And if that happens to be the case, then there would be no need for them to exist. With everything in Tianhai City seemingly being developed towards a stable and peaceful state, the scene shifted back to Tianhai City, specifically the Luck Manor. At this moment inside the shelter, Zhang Yi was in his room, observing the 2 ice soul currently in his possession. 10 days had passed by in a flash, and Yang Min, who awakened her superpowers using ice souls, had not shown any abnormal changes, nor had she lost her ability after Yuan Kongye's death. Although, it was unknown what changes would have occurred to the mutants who awakened their superpowers using ice souls. Zhang Yi can create 2 new mutants with these ice souls. Zhang Yi feel at ease at this point. In other words, an ice soul just had a catalyst-like effect. It could stimulate the potential for human mutation without any side effects, with the only drawback which seemed to have also disappeared with the death of Yuan Kongye. So, as of now, it's a pure treasure. After numerous contemplations, Zhang Yi had decided to give them to the people around him. A knock on his door suddenly sounded, and seconds after his permission, Yang Xinxin, Zhou Qi and Lu Karen entered. Zhang Yi expressed his meaning in the most tactful way possible. Now I have confirmed that the ice soul can still play a role after Yuan Kongye's death. I still have 2 of them in my hand, which can be used, but there are 3 of you and only 2 ice souls. You are all very important to me, and I don't want to favor one over the other. So how to distribute it is up to you 3 to decide. Yang Xinxin is a think tank and a top hacker, Lu Karen is a mechanical engineer, and Zhou Qi is a doctor. All 3 are very valuable to him, and he didn't want to ignore anyone and cause them to be dissatisfied. So, he simply let the 3 women decide how to distribute it. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Lu Karen and Zhou Qi's eyes showed excitement. Unexpectedly, only Yang Xinxin said calmly, "No, I give up. Leave the opportunity to them too." Zhang Yi and the other 2 were a little surprised. This is a treasure that everyone wants in the end times. And Yang Xinxin actually gave up just like that? Yang Xinxin explained, "My brain is the best superpower. Compared to me, you need its power more. So I'll leave it to you too." Indeed, Yang Xinxin's mind was her best ability. She has been paralyzed for many years and has become accustomed to acting with her mind. As a logistical player, she will not be able to use her superpowers. Lu Karen looked at Yang Xinxin and couldn't help asking, "Xinxin, have you thought it through?" Yang Xinxin smiled and raised her head. "I've thought it through. You don't have to worry about me. Just go and get the superpowers you want." A gentle look flashed in her eyes, and the 2 looked at the open black wooden box containing the silver-white ice souls in Zhang Yi's hand with fiery eyes. "You all know how to use it. Just put it on your forehead." Zhang Yi said this as he stared at the 2 of them seriously. "Just in case, you guys should also lie down first." Lu Karen and Zhou Qi excitedly took the ice souls, pressed it between their eyebrows, and soon it merged into their heads. As the 2 laid on the bed, Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin waited nervously, patiently and expectantly. The process of the 2 people fusing the ice soul was very fast. Their physical fitness was relatively good, so they were not as uncomfortable as Yang Min at the beginning. But even so, they still lay on Zhang Yi's bed to let their bodies accept this foreign thing. After more than 10 minutes, Lu Karen was the first to return to normal. She was sweating profusely, and fine beads of sweat covered her face, neck, arms and chest, as if she had just finished a marathon. There was no change in her body when she suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes seemed to be brighter, like a black shining diamond. "How was it? Was it successful?" Zhang Yi asked curiously, leaning forward. Lu Karen sat up and gave Zhang Yi an affirmative look as she clenched her fist, unable to hide her excitement. "Big brother, I have successfully awakened my superpowers." Under the expectant eyes of Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin, Lu Karen explained her ability. She took a spoon from the table, and then in front of the 2 people, without using any physical force, she quickly bent the spoon downwards. "My ability is related to metal and machinery. It seems that I can control the metal that my body touches. With this ability, I can create many powerful weapons in the future." Zhang Yi smiled and asked in a deep voice, "In other words, your ability is related to machinery. Can you improve the performance of weapons?" Lu Karen answered without hesitation, "Of course." She looked at the spoon in her hand and said with a smile, "Moreover, I can perfectly grasp every detail of the weapon and adjust it to the best performance. Also, not only weapons, all mechanical creations will be transformed into the most perfect form in my hands." Hearing this, Zhang Yi couldn't contain his excitement and said, "That's great. Your ability hasn't deviated from your job as a mechanic. You can help me strengthen my guns." Lu Karen continued to smile from ear to ear, her face full of unstoppable excitement. "I guarantee to complete this task," she replied. "By the way, boss, can you help me come up with a name for my ability?" Lu Karen suddenly asked. Zhang Yi was a bit taken aback with this, and replied that this is her own ability, so she should name it herself. But who knew that Lu Karen would seriously be against that idea, and solemnly insist that Zhang Yi does it. "My life was saved by the boss, and my superpowers were also given by the boss. so my abilities should also be named by you, big brother. Zhang Yi understood that Lu Karen was expressing her gratitude and loyalty to him. He nodded, and after thinking carefully for a while, he said that since Lu Karen ability is to operate machinery, why not call it Divine Machine Control? Lu Karen liked this name very much. Her eyes were sparkling, and she kept reciting this name a few more times before commenting that it was a good name. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin looked at Lu Karen with a smile. The two of them were already thinking about how to maximize Lu Karen's abilities. At this time, Zhou Qir also returned to normal, but she sweated more than Lu Karen, and her whole body was wet, making her skin look shiny. Not sure if it was an illusion, but Zhang Yi felt that her skin was fairer and softer than before, and her originally attractive body had even become more charming in proportion. Zhou Qir blushed slightly when she saw Zhang Yi staring down at her. "Why are you staring at me like that? Do I look good?" Zhang Yi couldn't help but nodded and smiled. "You look good. You've always looked good." Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen next to them looked jealous. Zhou Qir was embarrassed to show off her love in front of her two younger sisters. She sat up with her slender body. "Have you succeeded? What is your ability?" Lu Karen explained her ability honestly. Zhou Qir smiled and said, "Divine Machine Control? It's a really useful ability, and it suits you very well." "Then what is your ability, Sister Qir?" Lu Karen asked curiously. Zhou Qir explained calmly, "My ability is related to medical skills." She explained her abilities to them without reservation. "My ability can accelerate the activity of my own cells and allow cells to repair and regenerate quickly. This ability can be used not only on myself, but also on others." Hearing this, everyone finally understood why Zhou Qir's body became more perfect. Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen were really jealous, because this ability was what every woman wanted. As long as Zhou Qir was willing, she could change her body proportions at will and become a real devil figure. "Another aspect is my hands." She stretched out her slender and white right hand, which was covered with a green aura. "This is a pair of surgeon's hands, clean, white, and calm. My hands can cure other people's pathology, and it can even replace the scalpel to perform surgery on the human body." Zhou Qir said this and slowly walked to Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin looked at her in surprise. "Sister Qir, what are you going to do?" Zhou Qir squatted down with a smile. "I want to try to see if I can cure your legs." Before Yang Xinxin could refute, Zhou Qir suddenly stretched out her right glowing hand. Under the eyes of everyone, the hands suddenly became transparent, and the glow became even brighter and thicker. Then, her hands slowly sank into Yang Xinxin's waist. They slowly climbed from Yang Xinxin's waist all the way to her back, specifically her spinal cord. Yang Xinxin could feel something stirring inside her body, but that feeling did not make her feel painful. Instead, she felt something being removed from her body. Not long after, Zhou Qir took her hands out of Yang Xinxin's spine. Along with it, there was a large mass of gray-black mucus. While cleaning the blood on her hands, Zhou Qir said to Yang Xinxin, "Xinxin, you can try to see if you can stand up." The light in Yang Xinxin's pupils suddenly shook. After being paralyzed for many years, what she wanted most in her heart was to have a pair of healthy legs so that she could walk like a normal person. Lu Karen hurried to Yang Xinxin and looked at her with encouraging eyes. "Xinxin, give it a try." As she said that, she reached out and held Yang Xinxin's arm. Yang Xinxin looked at her legs nervously, and then began to exert force unskillfully. The legs that had not felt for many years actually produced a kind of power at this time. Zhang Yi couldn't help but look at Zhou Qir, and then at Yang Xinxin. Is this the legendary medical miracle? If Zhou Qir can even cure paralysis, there is probably no surgical injury that she can't cure. This ability is simply too powerful. Supporting her body, she slowly stood up from the wheelchair. "Ah! I stood up! I stood up! I can feel them!" Letting go of Lu Karen's hand, Yang Xinxin shouted with extreme surprise, completely losing the appearance of the high IQ sick girl in the past. Without the support of Lu Karen, she walked forward step by step and soon adapted to walking. Yang Xinxin's eyes were full of tears, and as she smiled, she continued to shed tears. She rushed over to the others quickly. Zhou Qir had a smile on her face and reached out to catch her. But unexpectedly, Yang Xinxin passed her and dived into Zhang Yi's arms. "Brother, I can stand up. I'm a normal girl now." Zhang Yi looked at Zhou Qir with an embarrassed expression and wanted to laugh. "Well, very good. That's very good. From now on you will be able to walk on your own two legs."